What's going on, everyone? It is Tom from Steel Valley Sportsman, and today is February 3rd. The Ohio deer season officially ended yesterday, which means it's the first day of next deer season. Today I'm going to get out here, I'm going to scout. I don't have to worry about blowing out anyone else's hunt, so I'm going to go take a long walk today. I'm mostly going to focus on covering ground, and then I'm going to come back later and go through all of this in detail. If I find sheds, great. If I don't, I don't. I'm not super concerned about that. Those are just a bonus. Basically, I want to see what the other hunters have been doing for the past year. I want to try and find like late season deer activity. If I can find some buck beds, that'd be great. There's spots that I've been wanting to check out on the map. And so essentially the way I look at it is today is the day I'm going to kill a buck in October, November. Almost every deer I've ever shot, it all came from some piece of information that I gathered on days like today. So it is in the low 30s, high 20s right now, but it's supposed to hit 54, I think, today. So it's going to get real nice and warm. I can shed some layers, and it's going to be just a great day to be in the woods and put some miles on. So let's go do it. So this right here is an actual spot that I hunted. You can kind of see this trail running right in front of me. It wraps up and goes off into that direction there, and there's quite a bit of heavy cover there. I've hunted this area for 2 years now, and I've watched from the distance deer run this trail, and what they're doing is they're kind of going through this area of relatively little cover, and they're heading into that area over there of heavy cover. So this is a transition where the deer are really visible, and but they seem to be pretty calm here because there's usually not a lot of hunting pressure right here. Not a lot of guys are willing to come back here. I actually set up on this spot last year in that cluster of trees right there, and I made the climb up quite a bit. You kind of have a hard time seeing it, but I got picked visually, not scent. I had good wind. But as the deer were coming down this trail, they would hit right here, and as they would make that turn, they came right into my shooting range, but it actually left me skyline because I was sitting on the back side of the tree in my saddle. And so I had some does come through earlier in the evening, and they picked me and stood here for the longest time just staring up at me. And then right before last light, I had a buck come right down this trail with his head down. He never stopped. He never gave me a shot. But I made a mistake, and I came back and I hunted the same spot the very next day because I had the same wind. And when I did that, the does had actually bedded right there on the edge. So they watched me hike in and set up, and then those does eventually got up before I even got the camera equipment up. The does got up and huffed at me and walked off, and I didn't see another deer the rest of the night. So had I not came back to this exact same spot, I might have had success that night. But it's just that same rule, hunting the same tree two days in a row. I just got lazy, that's all. This is the trail I was just talking about further up, getting closer into the bedding. And you can see here it's really well defined, and there's actually a lot of historical rubs going through there. It might be hard to see at this distance, but there's a relatively fresh rub right there. And these deer they hammer this area when things line up right, and but you get one shot at them usually, and then they're going to change. You can see right there where a buck kind of gouges antlers on it. Smaller buck, nothing too aggressive, but a lot of deer traffic comes through here. Whole lot of deer traffic. It's a good rut spot, good early season spot. They're traveling to and from a bedding area up here to a bean field down there. Okay, so as we work further back into that bedding type situation, you get to an area like this, and you can see there's not a lot of tall trees around me, and it is thick. It is really thick. Now this piece of property isn't necessarily public, but for about 300 acres there's probably about 40 guys with access to hunt it. And I might be the only one that comes back here. Maybe Nathan will come back here with me. But they would rather go hunt and all the open hardwoods and on the field edges and this and that. And when you talk about hunting in a place like this, oh, well, there's no trees and you can only shoot for 7 yards. Well, you know, that's where these deer live, and if you can only shoot for 7 yards and you got a buck at 6 yards, I don't know what that other 30 yards you're trying to aim at matters. I mean, this is a primo spot. Now, the other thing is, a lot of people don't want to scout this time of year. Phone going off. And I don't know why that is. They think the information's not good, or old information or whatnot. I can see in here right now. But if you come in here in June, July, August, September, during the season to scout before the foliage falls off, you can't see anything. You can see 10 feet in front of you, you know. So I may not be able to see that this tree back here could be good enough for me to hang a saddle in and hunt and have an angle, or, well, this tree is obviously dead and that one's good, this one's not, or potential trails in and out of here, or more importantly, the potential trails the deer are taking in and out of here. Sometimes those can be really hard to spot when you're walking around a more open area looking into this thick stuff. So get out there early, as soon as you can. Early winter, you know what I mean? If you got snow year round, it's a good time, or snow all winter long, it's a good time to get out. Or I like it like this, when the snow's kind of melted off, you can see a lot more. But get out before green up. You know, this is probably the most valuable scouting I'll do all year. I'm gonna apologize because I know that the sky is gonna make this difficult. I'm gonna try and block the lens out. But if you can see right there, you have one big oak. And then as I take a slow spin around, you see nothing, 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 nothing. A couple of sporadic big trees, and there we go to a second big oak. A lot of times in these old clear cuts, those have been left to seed. And last year these trees did not produce any acorns, but on years when they do produce, the entire area in between these two oaks will just light up with sign and activity. And these are in the middle, like you're almost gonna have an impossible time getting back here in the early season unless you know the trails. So here we are figuring out the trails, and should have at least some acorn crop next year. Probably not a bumper crop, but maybe one of these trees like that right there would be a good one to slip into, get nice and high and try and get a shot. It's a good spot though. Wouldn't find this any other time of year. You wouldn't be able to see those trees any other time of year. Alright, as you can kind of see behind me here, there's an old logging road. It's all overgrown. Depending on how wet your spring and summer is, it can be grass up to this tall by September, October. And then back in here, we can sort of see through this a little bit right now. And the same thing on the other side. It's like an impenetrable wall. But what'll actually happen is these deer will get into these areas and they'll bed in here. So what you'll find is you'll be walking one of these logging roads and you'll find 50, 60 little offshoot trails that seem to go to nothing. And sometimes you can even find tunnels within that thick area and follow those along. But it can kind of become overwhelming, especially when you think about how difficult it is just to get here, let alone to get into an area to get set up. So it is overwhelming. I get overwhelmed with it quite a bit too, but just keep picking at it and you'll start to figure out what's what. And this is when being able to read buck sign versus doe sign and stuff starts to really pay off. But don't get discouraged in places like this, because these are excellent places to hunt. Great deer populations, usually the density is way high and you don't have a lot of hunting competition. Okay, so I made my way into one of these tunnels, and it's thick back here, and that's commonplace for all of this. And a question I get a lot about hunting places like this is, how do you get a deer out of here once you shot it? Worry about that after you shot it. I used to fish with an old timer bass fishing, and he used to throw into the heaviest, nastiest cover and tell me, put your lure there. And I used to say the same thing, how am I gonna get a fish out of there? Worry about it after you hook it, you know? And I take the same mentality now with deer hunting. Is yeah, it might suck, but it's worth it. I don't ever think there's a place that's too far of a hike or too thick of an area to go in and try and shoot a buck if that's what you want to do. To me, that's hunting, you know, and call it laziness or whatever. I know some people just don't want to do that, and that's fine. I'll keep these places to myself. But yeah, just understand that when you get that deer on the ground, when you get that buck on the ground, it might suck. It might suck. Have friends, have good friends, do them favors all year long, Nathan, and then when you do shoot one, they come do you a favor. And I owe Nathan a lot of favors at this point, because him and his brother and a few other friends and Stacy Bayes brought her dog down and everybody to get a buck out of this place for me, and it was a challenge. With that being said, I will absolutely be back in here to shoot one again, and maybe sooner or later those people will stop answering my calls in hunting season. But don't be afraid of places like this, these overlooked spots, because a lot of times in places like Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania, around the Steel Valley, you have immense amounts of hunting pressure, okay? If we were to go 600 yards that way, there's tree stands everywhere, everywhere. If you come in here, there's hardly any. Well, guess what? Those guys, they all say the same thing. All the deer dead, we shot them all out. The coyotes ate them all. Poachers, trespassers, the damn DNR is giving out too many tags. They say the same thing. You've seen the video, or you should go back and look at the video of the night I shot my Ohio buck and how many deer I had on camera that night. I think I've seen something like 20, 30 total deer that night. Not exaggerating. It's not uncommon for me to go out on an opening morning or an opening evening of bow hunting and see 10, 15, 20 deer, and then talk to neighbors that live right next to me, hunting right in my same area, and I didn't see a dang deer. What's important though is that if you do start hunting in places like this and you do start finding success that you hadn't found before, keep it to yourself. I hate even filming like I'm filming, because I know that there are some people who are going to watch this video who are going to go, I might know where he's hunting. And you know what? Like, I know it sounds selfish and it sounds greedy, but my level of success will drop because of them coming in. Deer react more to pressure than anything else, and hunting pressure is a big one. More than food sources, more than weather change, hunting pressure will 100% dictate your success. And a lot of times in this area, you're dealing with small parcels, and it doesn't take much to move a deer off of this. This is about an 80-acre clear cut. It doesn't take much pressure to take a mature buck, which is what I'm after. Does not so much, young bucks not so much, but the mature bucks, the ones that we all want to shoot, it takes very little to get him to go, you know what, I'm not going to hang out here anymore. Or maybe he just says, you know what, I'm not going to hang out here during daylight anymore. And that's a big thing, is because we can only hunt him during the day, you know. Nighttime sign means nothing. If he's not there in daylight, you can't hunt him. So that's a big thing, is you get into these places because they're secluded, and then take steps to keep it secluded, okay? Don't share your fishing spots, don't share your hunting spots, don't ask me where I am, because I ain't gonna tell you. If I do tell you, don't go there, because I lied. I know, trust me, see me do it. Okay, earlier I talked about these secluded oaks, and here we are right in between them. You can actually see a little bit of an opening, and these trees are huge. To give you an idea of the size of these. So when they do produce acorns, they load up. A beech tree right there, and a lot of people would look at this and go, well, there's no trees to hunt. Well, yeah, there is. I have no problem slipping up into something like these, even something like that skinny guy right there. See, the thing is you don't have to be 20, 30 feet up, and in this area it may not suit you to be 20, 30 feet up. Maybe that little oak over there. All you really have to do is get high enough that you can shoot over this brush and make an ethical shot. So you're looking at like 10 feet. 10 feet tall. Another lesson from you can learn from scouting. Now last year I came into this area and around this time of year. And as you can see, so many of these trees have historical rubs on them. They're actually from a year ago. You probably couldn't walk through here and not touch one of these trees with it. The reason why all these rubs were here last year, but as you can see, they're not fresh this year. Well, there's another one of those oak trees we were talking about. It had no acorns, so they had no reason to be here. However, you make a note of these spots, because when that oak tree does have acorns, this is all gonna light up. I guarantee you, when I come through here the following spring, if I remember, I will point out that there is now dozens and dozens and dozens of fresh rubs in this area. So, just because you find old sign does not mean you should ignore it. You should always be paying attention to it. This one right here, this may have been rubbed this year a little bit, but it's not very aggressively. Not like it was last year. And the reason I found this spot is because I was in here a little bit later in the spring when these had leaves on them, and they had a very different color leaf. I don't know what kind of tree these are. I'm not exactly the best at figuring that stuff out, but I'm trying to get better at it. I think every hunter should. But I noticed that this little stand of all these little trees is a different species of everything else. That attracted my eye to it. You'll find anytime you find something different like that, and then lines of that difference. Right there you can see where some deer have been crossing that. When you find lines of those differences, that's a good point to get on, because deer like diversity. So find the diversity, you'll find the deer. I always like to come in and check out these secluded water sources like this, especially when it's hot, if there's water, and sometimes that's a really big if. These can be the hotbed of activity. Yeah, it may be just some swampy crap to you and me, but the deer will drink out of it. They don't care. They prefer this over a crystal clear running stream any day, in my experience. This time of year, it's always a good time to check them out too, because after hunting season, a lot of deer get wounded and they come to places like this to die. I've heard theories that they like the coolness of the water on the wound. So if you got these water sources, check them out, keep an eye on them. In the middle of summertime, if you have a buck population, it's a great place to hang a trail cam. This particular area doesn't support a lot of bucks in the summer, so I don't really have one here, but I have other places that aren't quite as thick that really hold a lot of bucks all summer long, and you can find them on the water daily till the velvet comes off anyways.